Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good?
Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. If you're listening to this, it is Friday, and this is episode 101. We are going to do a 20-minute Scratching the Surface episode, and we are going to do it on the 4 S's. Alan, what are the 4 S's?
The 4 S's. So the first S is sacrifice.
Yes.
The second S is struggle.
Yes.
The third S is suffer. And then the last S is success, and that's the one we all want.
That is the one we all want. So I was watching a countdown to the recent UFC that was on Saturday, and Mr. Henry Cejudo, he is an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling as well as a champion in UFC. In the behind the scenes, he was talking about the 4 S's, and that's where this kind of came from. And you know, we're going to go deeper on it than he did. He just basically said them. He said sacrifice, struggle, suffer, and success. But if you're chasing something and you're, you know, maybe you quit your job, right? That's the first step. That is the sacrifice. Or maybe, you know, this is something I experienced. I had to get out of a relationship that seemed good at the time, but I had to sacrifice that, what I felt was good, for great in the future, right? That's what sacrifice is. Now, the thing about this is it's a sliding scale, right? So you don't necessarily just go through sacrifice and then you're on to struggle. You take the sacrifice with you. And then when you get to struggle and you move on to suffer, you take the struggle with you to suffer, right? That's kind of how this all works. It's not like you're just going through a door. You're taking the weight of that with you. So I think we should go into sacrifice and what that means to us and what that'll mean to the listeners.
Can we start by bringing this down to earth? Normally you're the one who does this, but picture wanting to be in shape. So before sacrifice and before this 4S process, it starts with desire. So you want to get in shape. So therefore you decide to go to the gym today. Okay, so the first thing is sacrificing your time and energy to go to the gym. When you first get to the gym, it's going to be kind of a struggle because you're going to be warming up. You're going to be trying to get into your body and out of your head. You're going to be, you know, struggling through a workout. If it's not at least a little bit of a struggle, you won't grow and it's not a real workout, right? When you get to the tail end of that workout and you're already there for like, let's say 45 minutes to 50 minutes and you've been busting your ass, you're going to hit that point of suffering, like real suffering. The difference between struggle and suffering is like the level of intensity of the pain. Now, after that workout, you go home, eat your post-workout meal, and then you gain what we're referring to as success. In other words, your body will adapt to that workout, so now you'll be stronger and healthier and better off next time.
I'm glad you brought that down. So just for the listeners, we recorded our Small Talks episode a little while before this, and then we had a mastermind call with Eddie. And after being on the mic for the first round, I feel like I'm jumping back into an episode rather than starting a new episode. So I appreciate you bringing that down to earth for the listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great analogy. And what does this mean to you in your life? Like, what part of your journey are you on, right? We attach everything to a big why, right? Your why power is basically going to determine what you chase after.
Yeah.
And it's also going to determine what you're willing to sacrifice.
For sure.
Like, that's a big one.
If the price, if the promise is not clear, you won't be willing to pay the price. And these first 3 S's are the price of success. And I'm glad we're doing this, man, because on the call with Eddie, I was talking about how I think we forget sometimes the fundamental fact that we aren't going to get success without struggle, sacrifice, and some suffering. Like, I feel like we forget that. It's a necessary part of the process. And so if you think about anything that you want in your life, no matter what it is, you have to take a look at what is. Remember when my coach said, Alan, from now on when you set a goal, the very first thing I want you to do is write down what you're willing to give up. In other words, sacrifice in order to achieve it.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to consciously design your life, make sure you're willing to pay the price for the quote-unquote promises or the results or the goals that you want to achieve. So, for example, if you want to be a millionaire, let's say that's one of your goals. What are you willing to sacrifice to do that? Like, seriously, are you willing to struggle? Are you willing to suffer? Because to be completely honest, I don't think there's any way around this cycle. You have to give up to go up. John Maxwell says that in his books. Relentless, Tim Grover says that. I mean, this is the one common theme that we hear. If you listen to the guests that we have on this podcast, every single one of them went through all 3 of these steps.
Well, I think we should also bring context to what your definition of success is going to be. When I'm talking about success, when we're talking about success, when we're talking to guests about success, there's usually some level of, it's not just the money.
Oh yeah, no.
Right? It's what can I provide? It's what value am I giving? It's more than just like you could say, oh, I hit the lottery, now I'm successful. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, because that requires no
it doesn't
suffer,
require
no
anything.
struggle, or no.
Right.
The only sacrifice is buying a ticket.
Right. So it's the $4 or the $5. So I think it's important to know that, like, what is your definition of success if you're listening?
Definitely.
Like, what does it look like? Is it a happy family? Are you just a great mom? Like, what is it for you? It doesn't have to be this grand thing that we say. Like, I understand our heads are very, very up in the clouds when it comes to having the most successful podcast of all time.
Of all time?
But it's not just for the monetary value. It's more for the value that we can bring to you and the lessons that we're learning from the guests.
And the legacy.
The legacy that we just talked about in our previous episode that you'll have already heard.
Yep.
But
Wednesday night.
It's a lot of it is about who are we going to have to become.
Yep.
I had a moment the other day, speaking of lottery, a year ago, if you said, or we'll say 2 years ago, if you said, Kevin, if you hit the lottery, what would you do? I would have said nothing. I would just lift and then hang out and probably play PlayStation. And I had this realization when I thought of it last week that would have required me to not grow at all. It would require me to...
It would have required nothing.
Yeah, and that's scary to me now.
Yeah.
That's scary to
Can
me.
you explain that, please, to the listeners?
Yeah.
Because I think we're really going to hit a heartstring when it comes to this. For the listeners, I feel like remember that a lot of us grew up in a country that has had a lot of prosperity. And it's definitely, one of, if not the most powerful, economically driven, capitalistic society on the planet. So we have a lot of luxuries, right? We have phones, furniture, roofs over our heads, clothes on our back. So first and foremost, define success for yourself. You definitely want to climb the hill, and no matter what hill it is, it's going to require some level of sacrifice, some level of struggle, and some level of suffering. The degree of those things is going to be determining by how high your hill is. And remember that this is cyclical. So to bring it back to what I asked Kevin, like, what did you mean by that?
So, if you win the lottery tomorrow and your bank account is $150 million heavier, what do you have to change in order to be that new person? You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I think, and we say this all the time. Joe Rogan says it, not me. Name a
great man who's the son of a great man.
I mean, that there are like people who are, but like if you look at somebody like Paris Hilton, she was famous for a long time for not much. She was famous for being famous, and where did that get her?
Yeah,
rehab and whatever. So, if you want to be, say you want to be the best person possible in your next relationship, like you want to be somebody who's just amazing at being in a relationship, what do you have to do? You have to get over your insecurity. Maybe you have to get over your trust issues. Maybe you have to get over being self-conscious about things. Like, it's not always about getting the end goal. It's about what you're going to have to become in order to achieve that.
Yeah, the Jim Rohn quote that I always go back to is, it's not about the goal. It's about what it will force you to become. It's about what the goal will make of you to achieve it. So, for example, you just mentioned being, let's say success for you is being the best husband possible, okay? What do you need to sacrifice in order to make that happen?
Well, I think it depends. That's going to depend on your relationship. That's going to depend on the person, the man or woman you're with.
Let's just give a hypothetical.
So you're
quality time.
Yeah, you're going to have to spend quality time with that person. Yep. You're probably going to have to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Like you're going to have to open up and communicate. I think communication is one of the most important things.
Yep.
In a relationship.
You're going to have to be honest.
You're going to have to be
trustworthy.
Honest. Yeah. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to do that, quite frankly, I don't think a lot of people think of.
What are you going to have to struggle with? Like, hypothetically.
It depends. Again, it depends on you and what you're dealing with. But again, it could be insecurities.
Yeah, it could be maybe there's a guy that is interested in your wife and hits on her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because she's beautiful. Right?
Yeah.
So that's something you're going to have to struggle with and realize that it's not her fault and not take it out on her.
And then the suffering, that can come in a lot of ways. Maybe
you leave for 2 weeks and you miss her.
Yeah,
right?
Or maybe something happens and, you guys aren't fully trusting each other because of miscommunication, or maybe your communication hasn't been good, or maybe there are intimacy issues that are causing other issues. Like, this is kind of how the circle works. Like, the circle of success kind of has to work that way.
And if your intention is to be the greatest husband you can possibly be, you're going to have to go through this cycle over and over and over again, because this is really the process of mastery. Basically, deciding to become more and achieve a goal. Let me rephrase that. Desiring more in your life, whatever that is, money, relationships, impact, you name it. So that's the goal. Now you have to go through sacrifice, struggle, and suffering in order to gain success, and those three things are where you grow. And like when you become more. So it's like this is a constant cyclical thing, because once you get success, you don't just stay there. What's the next hill? What's the next mountain to climb?
It's just another level.
Yeah,
I think
it's another level. Exactly.
A great analogy for this whole thing is if you were in a relationship and it can go any number of ways. Either you left the person because maybe they just weren't it for you, or maybe you were hurt. So let's just say you left because you knew it wasn't it. Like, I know deep down this isn't right for me. I'm looking for the person to marry, and I don't think this is that person. Okay. So what do you have to do to begin? You have to sacrifice.
Yep.
You have to sacrifice and be willing to be alone.
Yep.
And be willing to probably be judged if you're 33 years old, because what are you doing single? You're 33 years old. You should be married by now. You should have kids by now. Right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the sacrifice. Then what do you have to do? Then you have to struggle. You have to struggle through figuring out, okay, where did I go wrong? Like, where could I have been better?
Yeah.
How am I going to hang on to somebody if I don't fix the things that I know I should fix?
What went wrong there? What changed?
Yeah.
What attracted me to that person in the first place? And then what changed?
Yeah.
Also, the struggle of just spending nights alone.
Yeah.
The struggle of being lonely. Right? And then the suffering, I would argue that that's when it kind of goes into suffering, is when you are very lonely.
Yeah.
But that time with yourself, when you're alone at night, that's going to be some real personal growth, because personal growth is personal.
And you want to get like this. I'm going to be real as hell. Suffering in this regard is when you have people that you could date, but you don't want to date them because in your mind you think you would be settling. It's not someone you're crazy about. It would be easy. It would be like an easy, this would fill that void, but that's not what you're about. You know better than that. And you're suffering because it's like, oh, I could have that and be normal and have what everybody else has, but I know better. I know that that's not what I want.
So let's dig a little deeper on that. So you have something that you're maybe not over the moon about, but that would meet your needs in the moment. But long term, that's not sustainable. So the harder road is staying alone, personal growth, and like learning how to be whole by yourself. The easier road is to just accept that love and fulfill that need in the short term. That's how a lot of people live their lives, by the way. And this is, I've done this, Kevin's done this. We all do this in certain areas of our life. What we do is we give up our goals and dreams to meet our needs.
Let me throw an analogy. Now, again, my analogies come just snap into my head. I don't know how it's going to come out.
Let's rock.
But so you and I are stranded on a desert island, or no, excuse me, on a A deserted island, not a desert island.
And we fight to the death.
No, you end up dead. So you're so thirsty. You're so thirsty. We're both so thirsty. How can we get water? Like, what can we do, man? It's just dry here. There's no water. All right, well, we're surrounded by ocean, right? So you decide, I'm just going to drink the ocean water, man. I know I shouldn't. But like maybe I'll be okay. I'll just have a little bit. And meanwhile, I'm willing to hold out and wait for rain. Or I'm willing to hold out and find a bucket so I can boil the water and get the salt out of it.
Yeah.
Like that's what this is. It's taking that thing that's right there that you know isn't what's best for you.
In the long run.
It's
not what's best for you in the long run.
Yes.
Yep.
It's convenient and it might meet your needs.
And it's right there.
It's right there. But you shouldn't take it because
it's bad for you in the long run.
Yeah, and you won't have to become anything more.
You won't have to become anything more. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
This is turning into a great episode.
Right? All right, so we talked about sacrifice. Let's talk a little bit about struggle.
Okay.
Let's just talk about, give me an example of somebody who they want to become a doctor.
So no pain, no gain. This is the struggle part. So the sacrifice is the conscious decision of like giving something up to go for more. The struggle part is when you're in the grind.
Yeah.
When you're actually like, so for a doctor, for example, that would be 10 years of school. Or 8 years, however long it is, right? Where everyone else is already cashing in their checks and driving new cars, and you're not, quote unquote successful in the eyes of society until you're 35. But then guess what? Who's sitting pretty?
Would you consider the suffering? When I'm thinking of suffering and imagining it in my head, it's when you really think you should be somewhere, but you're just not yet. It's like a doctor. You graduate and you're looking for jobs, and it's like, okay, I can't find a job right now. I've worked so hard, and now it's like maybe everybody was right. Maybe everybody that said I wouldn't make it was right. Maybe I wasted all that time. Maybe I wasted all that money. Like that's what I picture when I think of suffering.
So we can go into suffering if you want. I think sacrifice is the conscious decision.
Yes.
Struggle is the grind.
Yes.
And then suffering is the tail end of the grind. Suffering is when your life conditions, Tony Robbins says your LC, your life conditions do not match what you think they should match.
Exactly.
And so most people, there's only two things you can do when you're suffering. You can either level up to make sure your life conditions match what you think they should, or you can lower your standards. So, for example, the doctor who's 8 years into a 10-year degree, and just ignore the numbers on this. You're 8 years in. You have 2 more years left, and all your friends and your friends' friends and your friends' friends' friends all have cars and homes, and they're all quote-unquote successful, and they appear happy because when you see them, they're at social gatherings, and they're drinking, and they seem happy, right? You don't see them at their job that they hate. Not necessarily that that's the case, but sometimes it is, right? You're only seeing the highlight reel. So you're 8 years in, you're in a ton of debt, and you don't have, you're doing your residency or whatever, you're not really getting paid what you're worth yet. You are not where you thought you would be. You're not where you think you should be. That's when you start to suffer. And remember, suffering is when it's all about you, and so you can break this game when you focus on helping others, by the way. So do that if you are suffering. Focus on others. But assuming, for the purposes of this cyclical sacrifice, struggle, suffer cycle into success, when you're suffering, you can do one of two things. You can either change your behavior or you can change your perception. Most people change their perception. They tell themselves a story that this is okay, rather than changing their own bad habits. I think that's a dangerous game. For example, the doctor who's 8 years in can say, you know what? This is fine. This is good enough for me.
Yeah.
Or they can do a side hustle and start a podcast about doctors or whatever. Or they could, find a way to give speaking engagements about what it's like to be a resident. Or they can speak at colleges. Or anything. They could write a book. There's a lot of things you could do in your behavior rather than just telling yourself the story that this is okay. And here's the truth. If you are really happy, fulfilled, and joyous on the day-to-day, then that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? But if you know you're not, that's when it's time to look in the proverbial mirror and go, you know what? It's time to change my behavior because I'm not going to keep lying to myself. I'm not going to keep pretending that I'm okay being out of shape and that I'm okay with being broke, right? Like the only way you're going to get to success is being willing to own the fact that you're not where you want to be yet and then go through this cycle.
This goes hand in hand with the episode that we just recorded, which if you haven't listened, go back and listen to it.
Legacy, you mean?
Yeah, because it's like it almost. What did we say the other day? If you based your success off the first 3 months of this journey, you would have quit.
Oh yeah.
You would be insane not to. But, whether it's the success that you want, like whether it's the success that you pictured, or it's your legacy, whatever it is that's pushing you, like it has to be something kind of big.
Yeah.
It has to be something specific. It can't just be like having enough money.
You just hit a heartstring, for sure. So for the listeners, my Aunt Joanne, uber successful entrepreneur, first founded financial firm in New York City by a woman. Her and her partner, they're doing amazing. She coaches me every other Monday. You guys know that I mentioned it. She told me when I first started, she said, first and foremost, Alan, I want you to know that I'm envious. And I was like, interesting. She's like, you found your thing earlier than me. I wish that I had gotten into entrepreneurship far earlier because she spent, I think, 15 years in the corporate environment, which, again, she's now leveraging.
Well,
so that's
for sure.
not for nothing.
Yeah.
It's not for nothing.
Yeah.
And the second thing she said to me is, Alan, you're not going to make money for the next 2 to 3 years. I hope you're ready. And I remember being like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to. Ladies and gentlemen, she was right. Okay? This entrepreneurial game is so much effing harder than everyone makes it sound. Because making it sound hard might stop you from jumping. Don't let it stop you. You should still do it. Here's what I'll tell you. This is why Kevin and I talk about this shit, by the way, because the industry is kind of pushing in your face that, like, this is fucking great. They're just showing you the cars and the clothes. They're not showing you, like, how really terrible this can be. And that's why we're taking you on this journey, too, because we're all going to succeed in the long run, even though we have to sacrifice our needs in the short run for a brighter future for everybody, not just for ourselves. So whatever that thing is that you want, whatever that thing is that you desire, really go in a room alone and just think about it. Like, what am I willing to really give up? Because I'll tell you 2 things. Number one, if you really decide to chase your dreams and not just hold them inside, like be a dream chaser, not just a dreamer, the first thing I'll tell you is that it is going to be so much harder than you can possibly imagine. But I'll also tell you this, it is going to be so much more rewarding than you can possibly imagine. And honestly, guys, that's because the things that we sweat for, fight for, bleed for are far more valuable. If it wasn't hard, if you didn't have to sacrifice and you didn't have to struggle and you didn't have to suffer, then it wouldn't be fulfilling. It wouldn't be rewarding. It's the challenge that makes it great.
You kind of hit a heartstring with me there a little bit. Like, if you're listening to this and you've been listening for any length of time, like this is episode 101.
Yeah.
Right? So we've been doing this for a minute. Like,
101 battles.
101 battles. If you've been listening, you understand what we're saying. Like you've probably heard us breaking down.
Oh yeah.
You've heard us burning down. You've heard us ecstatic. You've heard us ecstatic, like coming back from Arizona, we were ecstatic.
Oh yeah, overwhelming gratitude.
You've heard us while we were in Florida. You've heard us at every step. And I think that's the beautiful thing that we have and the beautiful relationship that we have with you guys is that it's not just the shiny product. It's not just the finished, polished product. You're seeing what goes on in behind. And we're so vulnerable and transparent when it comes to like, yo, I had a shitty day. I didn't today. Today was a good day. but a lot of the times, like Alan said, this is hard. This is hard. But so isn't, like I always say, what you're doing right now probably is hard also. That's why you're listening. What do you got?
I had a moment, I think it's kind of interesting. I bet you if you were to go back and listen to all the episodes, which I recommend,
yes.
Unapologetic plug,
yes.
I bet you they do this. I bet you we talk about how we're going to have to, we probably set new intentions and sacrifice. We're talking about what we're sacrificing.
Yeah, man.
I bet you we start talking about the grind and how hard it's been. And then I bet you we start talking about how this is we're really burning down right now, but we're here for you guys. And then we probably start to talk about gratitude and success. I bet you these episodes are probably pretty cyclical.
Dude, I'm telling you right now,
Doesn't it feel that way?
That's how the original Scratching the Surface episodes were.
Literally.
That's exactly how they were.
Yeah, do that.
So the first episode, oh man.
Scratching the Surface, episode 1.
The first one I did was like finding your thing, I think. I think the first one I did was finding
Desiring
your thing.
more.
Desiring more.
And figuring out what you have to sacrifice.
Then it was like, oh man.
We didn't plan this, by the way. This is awesome.
No. Should I pull it up? Can you hold space?
Yeah, we can hold space.
Last time I told you to hold space, you didn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a dramatic reading coming up. I hope you're ready.
Do you want to read it now?
Yeah, I can do that.
And I'll search through this?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, dramatic reading time, folks. Alrighty. So this is something that I wrote on my Instagram 2 days ago. You and you alone are responsible for your dreams. Don't look back 20 years from now wishing you had done more with your life. Don't look back 20 years from now thinking about what you could have done. Don't look back 20 years from now filled with regret for what you never tried. Don't look back 20 years from now wishing you'd told that person how much you love them. Don't look back 20 years from now wishing you'd taken that chance. You're afraid to get hurt, and you will. You're afraid to get rejected, and you will. You're afraid to look stupid, and you definitely will. You're afraid to lose, and there's no doubt you will, repeatedly. But that's the price. That's the price you must pay to achieve your dreams. That's why following your heart is so difficult, because the risk of pain is so much higher when you actually care. You love so much, and you've already been hurt so many times. But that's where your real strength is. That's where your real passion is. That's where your real purpose is. Dreams don't come out fully formed, and they never will. Stop waiting for them to suddenly appear. Any direction is better than no direction. A conscious choice to move forward is always better than just drifting around. Have courage. Don't look back 20 years from now still lost. Decide. Choose to be a dream chaser, not just a dreamer, but a dream chaser. Big difference. Chase your dreams every day, no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, because chasing your dreams and living the dream are one and the same.
Where is that from?
I wrote that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
I like that.
Sincerely and with gratitude, Alan.
Alas. All right, so as we were saying, episode number 7, this was June 15th, 2017. This was when I was doing this by myself. Scratching the surface. Chase your fucking dreams.
So that's the desire part.
That's the desire part.
And what are you going to sacrifice?
Then July 21st, there was a quick turnaround in my miserableness. Scratching the surface, overcoming your first big obstacle in pursuit of your dreams.
The struggle, folks.
So that was July 21st.
Yep.
Right? August 6th, episode number 11. Scratching the surface, getting burnt out in the rat race.
Holy shit.
Right?
Holy shit.
And then...
Suffering. That's suffering. The fourth one has got to be that you quit your job.
I think after that, you and I started working together.
Oh, there's success, folks.
So then, yeah, the next Scratching the Surface was Scratching the Surface. This was in February 27th.
That's when the podcast got good.
Scratching the Surface, building confidence. So I
I'm
think
just
that's...
kidding.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I think that's the beautiful thing is like, that is kind of how it works.
Yeah,
like
it's
that's
how it
how it
works.
worked for me.
I can't believe that all just connected.
I told you it was going to.
That's awesome, man. What a great rep.
This is a great rep. What were you going to say? Anything
No,
good?
that's mind blowing. That this is the cycle.
Yeah.
And it's necessary. So stop. Marketing tries to tell you that it's going to be easy because otherwise you won't jump. Don't believe them. Don't believe that. Like realize that it's the fact that it's difficult that makes it great.
Well, it's like 6-minute abs or this that. It's like, oh, it's easy. It's super easy. It's like
21-day fix.
It takes time and it takes effort to basically do anything worth having. Right? And if you want to succeed, if you want something worth having, then you're going to have to work for it. Like, it's not going to be easy.
If you didn't go through that cycle, this wouldn't be a thing.
No, this wouldn't be a thing.
So the fact that Kevin was willing to do that is what made all of this possible for all of us, including me.
There were
by the way,
certain
I'm having a
things-
moment of overwhelming gratitude right now.
We're running long on this episode, but I think, I hope you guys are enjoying it because we're going back and we're feeling like I remember the moments of when I told somebody like, well, no, I'm going to podcast full time. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And they're like, no, you're not. Like, it's not possible. Like, I was like, yeah, but I'm going to be the Joe Rogan version of me.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, Joe Rogan's Joe Rogan. Like, you can't do that. I remember that. I remember the building I was in.
And then you said, but at one point, Joe Rogan was just Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Not like the Joe Rogan we all know.
Yeah.
That's how it all starts. Big things always start small.
Yeah.
Dude, good for you.
If you guys haven't heard those episodes, they're very interesting because that's me really figuring out like, oh, guess what? I don't think this normal life is what I want.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the job I have is what I want.
Yep.
So if you want to go back and listen to those, they're a long time ago. We're definitely not as good as we are now, but and it's just me by myself. I probably sound a lot like this.
And if you want to struggle, listen to those reps.
You'll struggle too.
Yes.
Struggle through them, suffer through them, sacrifice some time listening to them. So I think that's it. We are over as always.
Yeah.
But this was a great episode. I really enjoyed recording it. I feel like going back was nice. It definitely brought some perspective to where I am right now. I hope it did the same for you.
That was interesting with that cycle and how we've been through that so many times.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to go through that.
Of course,
You know?
it's perpetual.
By the way, the seasons, right? You've got fall, winter, spring, and summer. It's life is cyclical. You're not always going to be up. You're not always going to be down. You're going to be in building phases and then growing phases and then like success phases where you're like really in gratitude. So there's no wrong phase. There's just, if you want more, you're going to have to go through this cycle.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoy listening as much as clearly we enjoyed recording, and we will talk to you later.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.